All right.
So we're going to the second file?
We're on the second file, yeah.
Okay. So it was a means to an end.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same excitement as, say, undergraduate, because, I mean, I think that was much more formative.
Right.
I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, you know, and there was an objective, and the objective was to get the degree and then, you know, go into the, you know, find a job. And I chose the public sector.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And the public sector, at that point, I applied to lots of different government agencies, and I chose health, education, and welfare because they had an internship program.
Right.
It was a 3-year program, 4 9-month assignments.
Uh-huh.
And you started off at a GS 9, they moved up to a 11, and then you ultimately you got placed, you know, you took 4 assignments, and then you could go anywhere you wanted.
Uh-huh.
And so I ultimately wound up in the office of the Assistant Secretary for Health.
Mm-hmm.
That was very exciting times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got involved, the exciting times really were prior to 1968, 69, that's when Nixon came into power.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So one of the assignments, I did something that, again, I sort of reformatted, just like I did with Dr. Lystad. I mean, basically, Dr. Lystad gave me an independent study program within, you know, the purview of you know, sociology. What I did is I went to we're supposed to take 4 9-month assignments within Department of Health, Education, Welfare. There's the Department of Health. There's the Department of Education and Welfare, which it had Social Security, and I think it had, no, it didn't have Medicare. It had Medicare, it didn't have Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And that was rehabilitation services. Welfare, that was the Medicaid side.
Mm-hmm.
I took one assignment with the Office of Economic Opportunity, which was really the Great Society. And see, I was coming in at the end of the Great Society, and I was working on economic development domestically I'm going to blank on the program, but it was the office. It was fostering economic development, both rural and urban development. And I had an assignment for a year.
Oh, wow.
And as an the beauty about an internship program is that since you were not locked into a job, and the basis of it is that you would be there for 9 months and then you'd leave.
Right.
You got tremendous amount of responsibility. Nobody was threatened by what you would be doing. So they granted me, lots and lots of responsibility, and some of I was like the assistant director on some of these projects. So we were dealing with in Cleveland. It was Huff Development Corporation, which was a consortium between General Motors and Chrysler, working with it was the Office of Community Economic Development.
Uh-huh.
That's the program I was with. And so we paired up, we were funding the Huff Development Corporation and pairing them up with, the major corporations.
Uh-huh.
There was another one, Bedford-Stuyvesant Corporation, that was a little bit before, that we took it over, that's when, these are people are all, I don't think you'll remember, but Jacob Javits was, and actually Bobby Kennedy were involved in that corporation. And the Ford Foundation also was, and they got involved in renovating brownstones in Bedford-Stuyvesant, which is a very poor area. The one that was most exciting was the Rural Agrarian Reform Program that was in Lee County, Georgia. And I think the person, you remember this brouhaha at Agriculture with Shirley Sherrod, and where the the Secretary of Agriculture, what's his name? He fired her. And because she had discriminated against white people, in a previous iteration, and that wasn't true. Anyhow, I think she was part of the same project down in. It basically was an agrarian reform program using the principles of the kibbutz and the one that's individual ownership it's not the kibbutz, but it's the other one. And so I wound up there, and then I went on to be in the government for 17 years.
Wow.
And then I got so frustrated with the government because in the beginning it was very exciting. In the end, it was we were under Nixon for a while, and then we were under Carter, and then we were under who's after Carter? Ford. So I got frustrated, and I then in 1987 or 88. I decided I'd go on my own and do my own. Again, you have to understand where the nexuses are. Peace Corps working with farmers, setting up agricultural marketing cooperatives in the Andes. When I came back and came to SAIS, that was one of the reasons why I think I was interested in SAIS, is because it was near the mountains. Well, they didn't know how close they were, but so Pat and I started, in my second year, we started looking for property. And in 1972, we found some property in rural Virginia, it's Highland County. And we started raising a breed of cattle called Beefalo. And I actually, on one of my assignments, when I was working for the Public Health Service, I was with the Migrant Health Program. And so I read an article, fortuitously, on American Airlines magazine about beefalo. Anyhow, I got involved in that.
Great.
But that sort of triggered getting involved in healthier foods. I mean, this particular case, beefalo is a cross between bison and the beef, and it produced leaner meat. But that evolved, that worked for a while. What happened was we were a little bit ahead of our times. I was trying to create a little bit like on the model in Colombia. I was trying to get people to cross their livestock with mine, but you needed money to buy back the cattle. And there are several companies out there now. Laura's being one out of Tennessee, and Coleman out of Colorado. They do a great job in marketing lower fat, organic beef, we were all natural. Organic is the next step, which means you certify that your feeds are not tainted with any pesticides and all that. And the fertilizers you use. To me, it's all natural, which is important. That you're not injecting them with hormones and all that. But we were ahead of our time on that, and so 15 years later, 20 years later, there is some fairly large penetration, in the retail market and the supermarkets with all natural beef.
That's great.
Well, yeah, but we did it with Safeway. We did it with our side. The stumbling block is that when we had good success with Safeway, and we said to the Homestead and some other fancy restaurants. When you buy, this is all learning process, and that's really what I think maybe SAIS was good, is we're learning, connections and nexuses and all that. We could only sell sides of beef. Nobody wants sides of beef. The only people who want sides of beef are my friends who have a freezer who can buy 300 pounds of meat. And it has all the different cuts. It has steaks. Well, everybody wants steaks. But standing rib roast, no, you're not going to get a standing rib roast from me. But what these people figured out is they developed the market. So Coleman and Laura could take cuts that the supermarket didn't want. They could then find a market for the ground beef. They could have different markets for different parts of the beef, and that's where they were very successful. And also, I think that what they did is that they did a pretty good job of finding people who would produce their animals based upon their feed protocol, and they would have to certify that. And then they also had, most important thing, they had money to buy those animals. I mean, because if you're buying thousands of animals, where are you going to get the money for it?
Right.
I mean, so we were a little bit ahead of our times.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. And then, what are where has your career evolved, and what are you doing now?
Well, we still have the corporation. The corporation has evolved from fresh beef. It went to items that were basically refrigerated sausage. And part of it was, again, there's a lot of serendipity. I mean, if there was one lesson I would say to, to SAIS graduates is you follow leads, and you never know when something is going to happen that you have no notion of where it's going to lead, and so that's why I always use the word serendipity. I bought, when I read that article in 1975, I got a gentleman who was renting my farm for his cattle. I said, let's buy some beefalo semen, and so to inseminate some, and then I said, then let's buy some actual, breeding stock. So we went all the way to North Dakota to pick up we bought some livestock from North Dakota. We met the person in Illinois, and we brought the 3 animals back. Oh, wow. And so that's how we got it started on the beefalo. Then we went to. I was dealing with the person I bought the livestock from was making a refrigerated product called, basically it's a beef summer sausage, a refrigerated beef summer sausage. And so we got hooked up with this plant in Minnesota, and then it sort of spiraled. And then I got involved in other items, and then eventually I got involved in this company. It was called Houston Meats, out of Chandler, Minnesota. Started making a jerky type item, and that got me involved in shelf-stable products. And the company today is involved in shelf-stable meat and cheese items. And the company continues to grow. It's an uphill battle because there's a lot of deep pockets out there. There are a lot of companies out there that are somewhat, I would say, unscrupulous. They may not pay bribes, but they pay the rebates are the same thing, basically are the equivalent of that, or there's another term called slotting allowances or greening fees, which basically, if you carry my product, Giant Foods, I'm going to give you, $100,000, and so, but we learned, and so our market right now is we've developed some nutritious products for schools, for the military, and one of the markets we have is the prison market, which is a fairly large market. We used to be very, very strong in convenience. For about 10 years or 15 years, we were the #1 purveyor of meat snacks in this region, which was out of Falmouth, Virginia. But we got pushed out by Jack Links, who is the largest company out there now.
Uh-huh.
And he's the one I'm referring to as being, they use their dollars, they're very unscrupulous. I mean, they got their penetration by getting distributors. Distributors did what they want them to do, and then they got rid of them. Then they sold direct. So, but that's the nature of U.S. business, American business. So we are still in that fight. The other thing is that I've taken some of those experiences. The farm is central to my life. It's central to Pat's life because she is using it as a sort of a refuge or a place to, to sort of steal away from here and concentrate. So she's writing her book. The farm was for raising cattle, but we've done some interesting things there, and
that's great.
Yeah. So I mean, the interesting thing is that I've always been a nut about trains and streetcars, and so long story short, is I wrote a book about we brought a caboose from Roanoke to the farm.
Oh wow!
And there's a website and all that. And I think I'm going to try to get it. We've been talking to CreateSpace.com, which is the Amazon website that it helps you, print books or whatever you want. I mean, you can read it online, but I want a larger audience, and it's really the story is basically if somebody having a dream and seeing if they can make it come true, and
That's
then
good.
so.
Good. And so you would give, the advice you give back to current students is take advantage of opportunities that come your way that may not have been planned for you.
Exactly,
Right.
and also follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because you never know when there's a chance that it will come to fruition.
Yeah, that's super. Well, congratulations on all you've done.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your time tonight.
Okay.
And I just wish you that you keep going.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a great evening.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.